Welcome to CJ Hoops. This is our Sunday night pod.
We're getting
Fi-
into it.
the Final Four is set. We have finally made it to the much anticipated Thunder-Spurs series. We also have Cavs-Knicks, which should be a really fun rematch of a series from 2 years ago. And for those listening, please follow us on all social platforms at CJ Hoops Pod. So, Chuck, we were talking about it. We were texting back and forth about the Pistons and their ultimate demise. This is something that you and I have been discussing very much on the pod since about the trade deadline, when it looked like Detroit was going to have a top seed in the conference, and we were concerned about, at the end of the day, it just being a little too much Dennis Jenkins and Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
And here we are after a Game 7 talking about too much Dennis Jenkins, Duncan Robinson, and Tobias Harris.
You were really right on with this. I took the Pistons in 7. You were spot on about the offense just falling apart, and you can only get so far on Tobias Harris being your second option, and that's really what he was for this series. Because Cade took 35 more shots than Tobias Harris, who took 25 more than the next guys, which are Duncan Robinson and Dennis Jenkins, with about half of Cade's shots. So your Duncan Robinson being a third option, he hit some threes. He was on fire from three, but just he can't do enough. He's not a third option offensively. So you saw it, and you called it, that the Pistons offense was going to fall apart. What'd you see from them on that side of the ball, and Cade particularly?
You know, for Cade, I think he was just worn down by the end of this series. The toll that was put on him possession by possession. And the two names that you didn't mention when you were going through the shot outlay, which I think if you're going through Detroit's future and saying, who are the three guys that are really going to make up this core, it's Cade, who's already locked up on the Supermax. It's Jalen Duren, who will have a very interesting... Yeah,
Jalen Duren. Oh, yeah, I remember that guy.
That all NBA big man that averaged
11
rebounds and was outplayed in both series pretty handily by Wendell Carter. And today we saw Jared Allen have an absolute party in the paint. And Jalen Duren, where if you would have asked his agent, if you would have asked executives around the league, March, April, when he is barreling towards an all-NBA team, if not an automatic max, very close to the max. Will be very interesting to see where that number comes in. He is a restricted free agent. I imagine Detroit is not going to play around and will match whatever offer sheet comes in for him. But when you bring up him and then Asar Thompson, who, again, the Detroit model is always Cade is the offense and then Asar and Duren are the defense. But you and I were talking right at the end of the third quarter, and you said to me, hey, Josh, Detroit doesn't have enough points. And you were absolutely right. But the other problem was Cleveland had 100 points through three quarters. So if you're going to be an all-defense team, you can't then allow the Cavs to come onto your floor in a Game 7 and hang 130 on you. And so for Detroit, it was, to me, a combination of it wasn't enough offense, and then the areas of their team that they considered a strength going into the series didn't give them enough on that end of the floor to justify the amount of minutes and going forward the amount of dollars it will take to keep that core together.
Yeah, it's if you're not good enough on offense, they just couldn't get into any kind of flow in a Game 7, where you're supposed to kind of have your system down. You just played 6 games against the same team. So if you're not clicking offensively and then you're letting Jared Allen waltz through the paint defensively, pretty rough looking, especially for Duren, who's a big part of those deficiencies on both ends. Do you have any idea what happened to him this series? Because what I see is just it's the lights were too bright situation, a la Jared Allen in years before.
Yeah,
I just think he was too much. I think it was just too much too soon for him. That's what it looked like, because he totally didn't show up.
It's like the horror movie It Follows, where Mitchell Robinson gave the virus to Jared Allen, and then Jared Allen gave the virus to Jalen Duren. So I'm terrified for whoever Detroit plays in the first round next year, because that center should just not play any games for fear of catching the disease.
When you're getting benched for B-ball Paul Reed, and you're a second All NBA guy, something happened there
I
because
will say, do you know how old Jalen Duren is?
is he 24, 22?
He's 22.
He's 22.
So, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, and I
Yeah,
do
he's
think
young.
it's a
The lights
helpful
were too bright.
reminder
That's
where
what I'm saying.
Detroit 2 years ago won 14 games. And so I think they're much
Yeah.
closer to a second round and out team than they are an Eastern Conference Finals or NBA Finals team. And this is when you and I were having the conversation around the trade deadline. And if you are Troy Weaver in that front office, you're going to say, hey, this was our Josh Giddey Oklahoma City Thunder run where we want to just see who should be a part of the future. We don't want to go all in too early. And now I think you have enough data points because let me ask you this.
Oh, they got to do
Five
something.
guys on Detroit even going into that game 7, what 5 guys on Detroit did you really trust to have high-level two-way play in that game?
Looking at the regular season, you would have put Duren in that conversation, but after the first round too, you can't. You kind of know what you're getting out of Tobias Harris, and they got a lot more than could ever be expected. You trust Cade, but Cade, he really couldn't both create for himself or create for others very well in this series. So he's one of the guys you're supposed to trust there, obviously, as the hub, and he's not showing up. Dennis Jenkins is like a converted two-way player, so whatever you're getting from him this year, that's great for them in the long term. But yeah, they just don't have enough offense, and they were desperate for it in the series. If Karis LeVert had it, I mean, he kind of won them a game. They were looking for it from Marcus Sasser tonight, who was 3 of 12. So they're starved for shooting and offense. We know that.
And I think to your question about what happened to Duren, this was something we had talked about in the Magic series of if Bickerstaff goes defense to try and gain control on that end of the floor and plays a Sar Thompson or plays a Javonte Green you can't just – we've seen time and again in the NBA in 2026, 2 non-shooters is near death on the offensive end of the floor. 3 non-shooters is absolutely death.
Yeah.
And so Asar Thompson, who – made 1 jump shot today, and the city of Detroit celebrated like the Lions finally.
And then he airballed the hell out of the next one.
That's what, again, I think with Duren, it is as much as an all-NBA player, you want to see them be able to thrive in any system regardless of any personnel. I think the Pistons have legitimate questions to ask about how we can't play that many non-shooters. And then when you want to put in Duncan Robinson Kevin Huerter was absolutely MIA in this series, and you mentioned the Karis LeVert sighting. These are guys that you trust at the end of your bench, not to play leading roles in a game 7 for a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, they got some team development to do and personnel changes that need to happen. Let's talk about...
Is there, just to close the book on Detroit, because I do think we've mentioned the glass half empty a lot, and this is a bummer if you're the Pistons.
Yeah.
Because, as much as it's great to celebrate the first series win since 2008, you do have a segment of the fan base that is going to justifiably say, we're a 62-win team, we're the number 1 seed. We had Game 7 on our home floor against a Cleveland team that had never advanced to this stage in this era. You can't lose by 35. The glass half full view is there's really no one making big money besides Cade. You have all of your draft picks. So for you, what do you see if you're Detroit this offseason? It can be a player, it can be a prototype, it can be something as broad as just more two-way play on the wing. What is something you're looking at for Detroit going into the offseason of that needs to be fixed to make sure this doesn't happen again next season?
You're looking glass half full potential of what can be done in the offseason. Then you're looking for more playmaking. So it just doesn't have to all be on Cade's shoulders. That was you were talking to the defense not being great, but the offense over the playoffs, once the defense is ratcheted up, it really was the thing that sunk them, and they need more than Cade as a creator. I think glass half full, Dennis Jenkins is a guy that they need to flesh out and give minutes to. Duncan Robinson can be used in spots. But I think that's really what they need. The lights probably won't be too bright next year. That's what you're hoping for Duren, and he's young. So glad, honestly, like they have a bright future. Is just I'm a bit down on what I just saw over their kind of their whole playoff run.
Yeah. Let me throw out a couple of names to you and see if there's any interest for going into
Speculate.
next season. Michael Porter Jr.
Okay, that'd be
Any
great.
not a ton of playmaking, but a lot of shooting. And I think there's an element of they just need with Cade, because the other name I was going to throw out was Jalen Green. Could you get one of these distressed assets, but a guy that can just score the
Yeah,
ball and
yeah,
someone that when Cade goes to the bench, you're not sort of looking around the floor and saying, is anyone there that can
yeah.
interest me? So did either of those stand out to you? Is there a name you had in
I
mind?
think I think Jalen Green's more interesting. Now, I haven't speculated on trades, but I like the idea of Jalen Green having, re-expand his role on this team. You've been throwing Durant out there for a while to come to this team. That would be solid. It's a bit of a desperation move, but I mean, he would be great. Um,
And I think this is what happens. We talk about these life cycles of teams forever where, we're going to talk about the Spurs and the Thunder here coming up in a bit. And those are two teams where you can think about, or you at least have the idea of thinking about a 10-year runway. But for Detroit, you're now bound, now the expectations have completely reset going into next season. This year it was, hey, it'd be fun if they won a series. That would be really cool. This was a 14-win team 2 years ago. Now they have Cade. Well, Cade, we saw the MVP ballot come out today. Cade finished fourth. Jalen
yeah,
Duren's an all-NBA player. Asar Thompson is 1 year closer to restricted free agency. So, again, for the Pistons, a season that I think was a success, all things considered, and I think played at or very close to their ceiling. And in the end, that just wasn't enough against a Cleveland team that we had said the entire season, the entire run up to the playoffs, had a lot of talent. And so
yeah,
let's actually switch over to Cleveland, because this was a team that we had been joking about. The idea of picking James Harden in a game 7 made both of our stomachs make noises that we were not all that excited for. But this is why you bet on 4 really good players. And even if Mobley and Harden are going to be B pluses in
yeah.
that game, you got an A plus Jared Allen game, an A plus James Harden game. What'd you see out of Cleveland? Walk me through that series, a little bit about what you see in the next round, but let's start
Yeah.
with the game today.
Yeah. I think we can kind of close the book on the Pistons. That all sounded right. Cleveland, I was really high on them, um, and you're right. I mean, if they kind of have a lot of weaknesses, is what I saw this series. It really shouldn't have went 7. But you get some no shows from Harden, and everyone likes to talk about it. But what are we actually seeing there? I think when you're 36 years old, like he looks like he doesn't want to expend all the energy because he just doesn't have it. Um, so when he's driving by people in this game 7, where it's like not a on Harden game, he's purely looking to defer. He's not really looking to get shots up, and the defense senses that. Um, so and then he's getting blown by defensively. The Pistons don't have the offense to take advantage of that, but that's just not going to be good enough in future series. I think the Knicks are definitely going to look to feast on Harden if he's going to look like that. But yeah, he just can't, when he's having an old man game, he just can't affect the game in any really other ways. So it doesn't look great. But let's talk about Donovan Mitchell a little bit, because it looks like this team is living and dying by him, unless Harden can pitch in. And he's coming up to the task. I mean, he started the game just dishing this game 7, really getting everyone involved, getting whatever he wanted as well. They came out really hot behind him. And his 2-man game with Jared Allen was really what was breaking this game open from the tip. Yeah, man. I've been up and down on him. Tell me about Donovan Mitchell, what you're seeing so
Well,
far.
I think you mentioned the start of the game. I thought was such an important moment. And this is Donovan Mitchell's first conference finals now that they've advanced to this round, a place that he had not been in all of his years. He'd made the playoffs every single year of his career. He had never gotten out of round two. I saw a sense of maturity in his game today where
Yeah,
a few losses in this series, you look at the box score and you're watching the game and you just don't feel his effect at or near the rim. He's settling for a lot of threes. He's trying to create something in the mid-range. And I thought the best sign if you're a Cavs fan and if you're a Pistons fan, what concerned you from the opening tip was he was going to the rim and then he was going to score. He was going to set up the bigs. You know, first play of the game, it's a lob to Mobley. Second play of the game, It's a dump off to Allen. He continued to feed the bigs, and by driving and making the defense have to make decisions, you saw later on that helped James Harden. James Harden is on a pick and roll with Evan Mobley. He drives. Isaiah Stewart stays attached to Mobley. James Harden gets a layup. I thought by Donovan Mitchell being aggressive early in the game and not settling in a way that, you heard on the broadcast, Cade had come off a pick and roll. It was about midway through the second half. Or you had Donovan Mitchell on him. Donovan Mitchell had 2 fouls at that point. Cade settles for a 30-footer.
yeah,
I thought Donovan Mitchell, just having played in enough of these games, came in with the mindset of, I am going to dictate the terms of this game rather than this game be dictated the terms to me. And that's, I think, all you've ever wanted if you're a Cavs fan is you have all this fucking talent. Go enforce your talent on the other team instead of allowing the other team to just push the ball into the Max Strus and Sam Merrill's hands and say, well, we did the best we could. It sounds like you agree, though. You saw a similar
Donovan Mitchell is totally dictating the game.
Yeah.
That's the game and most of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed so calm in a game 7 doing that. I think he's definitely growing into the person that they need him to be. I mean, part of his creation for others too. If you were paying attention, you might blink and miss it, but Sam Merrill, 7 of 10, and just draining from deep, making big plays off of Donovan Mitchell's penetration. If it wasn't him, then it was Max Strus in games. But just getting those role players involved and getting them confident hitting threes, he did a great job of managing the series and getting people involved. I mean, Mobley on offense, I think he just is what he is right now with this team. And you'll see a little bit of aggression every once in a while from him. And I do like when they gave him the ball in Game 6 and he went to work. He was solid with it. But that's just not how they're looking to play right now. They're looking to play through Donovan Mitchell. So,
well,
yeah.
And you saw on ESPN today Brian Windhorst come out with the very rarely seen but always appreciated pre-game "Now They Tell Us," which you don't always see. That's something that you normally see a couple of days after the loss. But that article came out, and it was sort of like Cleveland's a second apron team. Major changes will be implemented into this roster if they don't get out of this round. And again, back to that idea of glass half empty, glass half full. Yes, if Cleveland loses that game, Mobley is most likely, and he still might, depending what happens in this New York series. Mobley might be out of town. Harden might not get re-signed. Mitchell might get traded. Everything. Yeah. But glass half full, Cleveland has a team in the second apron because they have so many players that are good that command big money.
Yeah.
And so when those guys come and play and you get a contribution, you mentioned Sam Merrill. I thought him and Max Strus were exactly what the Cavs needed as the fourth and, oftentimes fifth player in those lineups of it just can't be this much Dean Wade. And I think when we're comparing Detroit,
oh my God,
Cleveland, Detroit didn't have those fifth guys where it's like we can't leave Sam Merrill because he is going to make an open shot. They really only had Duncan Robinson.
Oh, they didn't have any offense. We know this.
So that to me, and again, looking into the next series, if you are going to believe in Cleveland, it is going to completely be because you think their offensive firepower can match or exceed New York's.
Yeah. We're going to look forward to those series. I just got to throw some at Dean Wade for a minute. That's another one of these big weaknesses that the Cavs have, that just facing a team that was pretty dysfunctional, they couldn't take advantage of it. You're starting Dean Wade and playing him 21 minutes a game. He scored 3 points a game. He was like 0 of 2, 0 of 1.
Mm-hmm.
Had a few rebounds, not really involved in the offense, not really involved in the defense.
Mm-hmm.
But they could get by with just having a total 0 on the floor for 20 minutes a game. That's not going to be good enough against the Knicks. I think the Knicks have a much more well-rounded team and are going to take advantage of stuff like that. But we're going to save that discussion for a minute. All right, we're back. Let's talk some Wolves Spurs. This was another great series that I think then kind of got overwhelmed with the better team winning. The Spurs won in 6 games here. The Wolves they tried their best, but they were down some horses. Dante DiVincenzo went out before the series. He's down definitely some percentage of both of his knees for the series and just couldn't really dictate the game how he usually would. And if your best guy isn't near where he has to be, especially if you're outmanned, then you see what happened there.
Well, and you forgot that Julius Randle had some crazy. Oh,
I was going to
shot,
remember.
He just shot 1 of 10 in the game, and he was totally healthy, which is what you always want out of your second highest paid player on the team. Okay, cool. Just making sure that was also listed.
He's part of the rundown. Believe you me. But we got to start with the Spurs here, and we got to start with Victor Wembanyama. He is.
Let the record show I pushed to have us start with Dylan Harper for the fan club, but was overrode by our producers and my co-host here. So, okay, we can start with this.
Heel, Josh. Heel on the Dylan Harper. Wemby, this is his first playoff run. Mm-hmm. This is about all you could dream of from his first playoff run. Even the mistakes that, of course, a whatever-year-old that he is going to make, between getting kicked out of a game for losing it for a second, and some of the shot selection stuff hasn't been the greatest. You have to love what you're seeing out of Vic. Everything's going to follow behind him, and you saw in that closeout game just 100% locked in, dictating stuff on both sides of the floor. Defensively, he is kind of just moving the series like Professor X with his mind. Mm-hmm. The Wolves just over and over, when they did try to get downhill and get into the rim, he was right there every time. I'm so stoked for next series, but we're going to hold discussion on that. What did you see good and bad out of Vic?
Well, I listened to John Krasinski on the Zach Lowe show this week, and you heard him talk about Vic going into that game 5, I believe. And Krasinski said something to the effect of, if Victor decides that he actually wants to go towards the basket, the Wolves have nothing they can do.
Yeah.
Which was something that you would really hear about early LeBron, where there's not really a defense. You just hope that he gets bored dominating and that he settles for jump shots. The most interesting part to me is if Vic is a young LeBron in terms of LeBron's life cycle and maturation on offense, I find that he is so advanced for his age on defense.
Dude, light years.
Where when LeBron was in Cleveland the second go-around, you always hear people say he's mastered the game of basketball. Yeah. He can dictate every single player on every single possession when he has the ball because he's the smartest player out there, and he can back that idea of enforcing their will. When we were talking about Donovan Mitchell, LeBron could enforce his will and still in some instances can.
Yeah.
I find that Vic is, at 23 years old, reaching and will only continue to move forward on, but is reaching that level defensively. Where if he is engaged, he can dictate what every single other player does on that end of the floor, which, you mentioned we were going to hold our take on the Spurs-Thunder series. But if you were to pick the Spurs, a large part of it would be he is just, when locked in on defense, which we've talked about the entire season, for a player so young with so many plaudits, just continues to do the little things at such a high level. And his commitment on defense to make the right play every single time, you see how it's empowered the rest of the lineup to just be, they can take another step closer to their man because they know if they get beat, he's behind them.
Yeah.
So I just cannot say enough about him.
Styles make fights, and Wemby makes you change your style with what he's doing defensively. Most teams they can't afford that. They are good at the one way that they play offensively, and a big chunk of that involves getting to the rim. Usually the team that gets more points in the paint wins games, dictates games. He changes everything there. And yeah, I couldn't be more impressed as well. But we got to talk about some other guys on the Spurs. Steph Castle's coming into his own. Dylan Harper's coming into his own. We've kind of discussed them more than enough. Yeah, I mean, are there any other players on the Spurs that have kind of whiplashed you around, or is everything kind of just
Well, I
humming
think
as it should be?
I had predicted before the series a massive De'Aaron Fox series,
Hmm.
and when predicting the Spurs in 5, did not think that Anthony Edwards was going to play, but had assumed that Jaden McDaniels would spend a lot of the time on Steph Castle or Dylan Harper, and that would free De'Aaron Fox up to have a bigger series. I think in the end, he played okay.
Yeah, he was okay.
Where my concern with him has always been as a max player, as an all-star, and as sort of one of the key veterans that have playoff experience, that have an outsized role on the team. People will mention that Luke Cornett or Harrison Barnes have played in meaningful games, but De'Aaron Fox is a real driving force of this
Yeah.
team. And so I don't think that's going to be enough to beat the Thunder, but I thought was okay enough in this series. And otherwise, they just continue to have depth up and down the roster. You get a Keldon Johnson game here, you get a Devin Vassell game there, you get a Sham Penny game here. So who stood out? Who stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, they're very keeled offensively of where the shots are coming from. You'd want some more of those to go in from De'Aaron Fox, but it's good enough when you're propped up by the rest of those guys. Yeah, I'm just stoked for them the next round. So let's hold off on talking that next round matchup, which is Titanic, and let's talk about the Wolves a little bit. What we saw good, what we saw bad from them this series, and then what they're looking to do in the offseason to change things up. So we talked a little bit about Anthony Edwards. He was able to tap into a dominant force at times. He closed out a game with some big threes, but just he wasn't able to be himself and exert that influence through enough of the series. And I'm going to chalk it up to the injuries. As a physical therapist, when someone bends their knee backwards, even if they go back into playing aggressive, athletic NBA basketball, he still is not himself. Like, that joint is not itself. He wouldn't have been playing right now if it wasn't the playoffs. So I'm going to chalk it up to injuries with him. For the future with him, you just hope he keeps progressing as he is. Every year he adds something. He's become a high volume sniper from 3-point that can make it himself. And he's developing as a passer slowly but surely and just running the engine of an offense. So you just bet on more Anthony Edwards progression for the future, right?
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the team, and we had talked about Detroit a little bit before. Detroit having some flexibility with regards to their cap, having some flexibility with regards to ownership of draft picks. The Wolves are not in that same position. Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle.
They're in a little trouble.
Well, they're older players, and so when you're in a series for a team like Detroit, we had already talked about, hey, some of these young guys, you're in sort of the fact-finding phase of the franchise life cycle. Well, Minnesota's not as much in that fact-finding phase. When they made the Rudy Gobert trade, it was very much we think that Anthony Edwards, we're going to make this bet on him. We're going to bring in some older players. These guys have now been in enough playoff series to where you should know what you're getting from them. And you're going to go through here in a second sort of the different players on the Wolves. I think that Ant had a really good series. You mentioned the limitations he had with regards to his health. I thought Jaden McDaniels at different points, he obviously didn't have the best
showed up.
6, but overall a really, really strong series. Naz Reid had a couple of nice games there, but I just found there were too many players. And sort of, how about you take it over? You go through it. What did you see, guys that you think played above their expectation level in this
Yeah.
series, and then guys that played below that expectation level?
Yeah. Let's start with the guys playing above. I agree. Jaden McDaniels is really emerging into a two-way talent. Um, wasn't able to get it done at the end of the series, but it was kind of over. They were just overwhelmed. Especially, I'll get to Julius Randle, I promise. But good, we got to stay with the good. Um, Terrence Shannon Jr. is someone that you look in the future and is someone you got to give minutes to. Hitting big threes, engaged the whole time, great defense, going to the hole aggressively. Someone that you kind of don't really know where he came from because they were just down men and needed someone, and he stepped in there, and whoa, this guy is a playoff contributor. So that's a really positive thing to pull from this series and playoffs. Same thing with Ayo Dosunmu. You're stoked at how that trade went for the for the Wolves there. You got a free player for pretty much nothing, who is also a playoff winner. He had like a 43-point game to put them over the Jokic Nuggets, if I remember that correctly. So yeah, you're stoked on Io as well. Let's go over some of the negatives. Julius Randle. This is like the trick or treat player of all time, right? Like just when you think you're ready to be with him and he's consistent, then he falls off a cliff. And he kind of just fell off a cliff in this series, and just I don't know how to explain players like that, like Harden, like him. That one day they have it, and then the other day it's like he's trying to go at Vic over and over again in the paint. Maybe try not to do that and just swing the ball. What do you see with him?
It's like when it's like when you're out at a bar and you have a really good conversation with a guy, and the guy's like, "Well, I don't have a lot of friends in this city," and it's like, "Well, why? This guy is like the coolest hang in the world. Like, I'm
Sure.
really enjoying drinking a few beers. We're watching some hoops. He's into sports. We're talking movies." And then you bring him around your friends, and your friends are like, "That guy is crazy. Why are you friends with him?" And it's like, "Well, we had that really fun hang at that bar that one time." And so for Julius Randle, who this is now his fourth team and has been in many different situations, this is a guy that flipped off Knicks fans, which tells you how great that relationship ended with that organization. You mentioned trick or treat. Julius Randle, there's that. We talk about honeymoon Harden. There's honeymoon Randle. This was great. Beginning of the season, he's engaged. He's playing some defense. The Wolves are like, "I can't believe we got this guy. This is awesome." And then, you reach this point where now you're introducing him to your family. Your family's like, "I can't believe you're hanging out with this person. Get rid of him as soon as possible." So that's that. You mentioned the Julius Randle experience. It's so crazy because we keep getting here, and great Randle is the best Randle. I mean, this guy
it's good
outplayed
when it's
LeBron
good.
James in a series last year. And then this year, the guy can't hit a broad side of a barn from three-point range, and sort of lost his jump shot the entire year.
Yeah, it's great when it's great, but it's really bad when it's bad, and it's bad enough that in your analogy you shouldn't be bringing them home. You know,
Yeah.
maybe they're good for what they're good for, but leave it at that. Really tough because that was the trade. Cat was also a guy who, when it's good, it's great, and the great parts are great, and then the parts to stay away from are legitimate and should be honored as well. So the trade that just keeps on giving, and who's won it, who's lost it, pretty bizarre. So that's enough Julius Randle. I feel like we both brought the heat there. Um, other guys in the series, is there anyone worth talking about?
Well, I mean,
Rudy.
you have to
Rudy had a
talk
great
about
playoffs against
you
Jokic.
absolutely have to talk about Rudy, because that was always those were the two paths. And the Wolves have had more success in the past two playoff runs with Rudy than at any time in their franchise history since the Kevin Garnett era.
Yeah.
And we keep bringing up that idea of glass half empty, glass half full. The glass half full will say he did his part. He played great against Vic. They beat Jokic. They had the past 2 years reached the Western Conference Finals. They were a game 6 and potentially a game 7. They had a chance in this series, and the glass half empty side will say it never looks great. When he looks bad, it just looks as bad as any All NBA Hall of
Yeah.
Fame level performer in the playoffs. And now the Wolves, we had mentioned it when looking at their long-term cap sheet and their flexibility, they're sort of stuck. Io's a free agent. You mentioned him playing well above his level. That's a guy you'd think you'd want to re-sign.
Yeah.
You didn't mention him. I thought Mike Conley, all things considered, had a strong
Yeah, he's solid.
series for a guy who's 37, 38. And
He's solid.
Solid.
But you don't want to need that.
No, but
Like-
let me ask you this. Having watched this series, who is a non-negotiable, this person will not be traded, they have to be on the Timberwolves at the start of next season?
I would only say it's Ant, it's Jaden McDaniels, it's Io, Terrence Shannon Jr. You want to see what you have there. Other than that, looking up and down, that's about all I got. Everyone else can be moved.
I have the same group, and it's so interesting that we both didn't pick a single one of the three bigs of Randall, Gobert, Naz Reid, because the three of them make $95 million a year for the next 2 or 3 years. And the bet when trading Towns was always, we'll have depth at big. We'll be able to play two of these three big men on the floor at any time. And while Naz Reid had some nice scoring games at the end of the series, was not at the level of.
No, he's not moving the needle enough.
No, and none.
But I
none
think
of
he
the-
could if you if you thrust him into a bigger role.
Yeah.
I think Naz Reid is legit, and I would definitely move Rudy or
Big
Julius
Joey.
Randle at this point.
We'll see what both. We'll have a lot of time to talk about the Wolves in the offseason, but I thought it was a very, again, comparing it to Detroit and both of them being led by under 25-year-old All-NBA guards.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see how different the teams are in their long-term approach. Detroit has been patient. It's a bummer to lose the series, but you got all that flexibility. Minnesota still was not favored in this series. You had mentioned DiVincenzo, you had mentioned some of the injuries, but is now just in a totally different spot heading into an offseason where all their players are only going to get 1 year older, totally in agreement on the untouchables. Will be very interesting to see how Tim Connolly and that new ownership group restructures that lineup to try and compete in the West, because we're here, Chuck.
Yep,
We finally made it to the good stuff.
we're here.
This is, if you're the West, get ready, because you're going to be looking at this series a whole lot potentially for the next decade. We got Thunder-Spurs.
Yeah,
This is going to be fun.
I've been waiting for this series, Spurs and OKC, since the early season when we saw them face off over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
If I could remind everybody, OKC started this season in a way where we credibly thought they could break the all-time wins record.
One of us predicted it before the season and felt really good about that bet, or felt really good about that about 30 games in.
Just self-deprecate on yourself with that. But what I want to get to is then at that point, the Spurs came in and just demolished all sense of dominance that they had and really changed how the league was being viewed. Spurs had a pretty incredible year, and the Thunder have been easily the number one seed, even without Jalen Williams. And by the way, Jalen Williams is saying, I'm healthy. Let's go. He's entering the fray. OKC, San Antonio.
You think it's going to be awkward to tell him he's coming off the bench now that AJ Mitchell's the second best player on the team?
Dude, with that culture, like, I actually think he wouldn't even care at all. He might. Like, who cares? They really just look for the win, and they're so selfless. So I'm gonna give kind of the wheel over to you here. What are you looking for in this series?
Well, we're going to pod on Tuesday after game one, and we're going to get more into the X's and O's and sort of the breakdown of the game. I think if you're a fan of basketball, this is as excited as you've been about a series and about the potential for a series going into the future since LeBron and Steph in that 2015 range.
Yeah,
where these are two heavyweights that have been circling each other. It's not a secret, and it's been shown all over social media in the lead up to this series that Vic and Chet do not like each other. I don't
yeah,
think these teams really, because the most interesting, sort of barbershop debate right now is what team is better set up for the future. On the
sure.
Thunder side, you have the current MVP. You have the championship already. It's well documented that the Thunder own all of these picks, have all of these great players. And on the Spurs side, you have Vic. And in
Yeah,
addition to everything else that you've got, so I just, for me, and I'm curious if there's a series that comes to mind or a potential matchup that comes to mind. This is, I think, what every NBA fan was hoping for since,
yeah,
you had mentioned that, 10-day stretch in December where the Spurs go in, they beat them 3 times, and it's, oh my God, has Rocky Balboa found his Drago?
yeah,
Where all of a sudden he can be cut. Because to your point, the Thunder up until that point, we thought they were going to win 73 games. We thought they were going to go 8-0 in the playoffs. Oh, wait, they have gone 8-0 in the playoffs. But we thought there was not a single team that could push them. And I think all NBA fans that are not hoping for an Oklahoma City dynasty are looking at the Spurs and saying, help me, Obi-Wan.
yeah.
You're my final hope here.
Dude.
So what for you, do you see the same element of Spurs Thunder? Do you buy any of this talk that this series is the real NBA Finals?
Oh, I think if you're looking at who's going to win the NBA Finals, it's going to be decided here. So you could say the NBA Finals came early with this series. That being said, looking at the series itself, the future is now. The future is happening now. Both of these teams are light years ahead of the other teams.
Be careful.
And everyone on what?
Be careful with light years. I think Joe Lacob still has that trademarked for the 2 timeline theory.
He could have his 2 timelines. Maybe the next timeline's a little later than what's happening now. He knows something we don't. But these teams not only are way ahead of everyone else, they are younger than everyone else. So this has potential to be the next 5 years. It could be the next 10 years, but things are so unpredictable with this sport. But I think this is going to be here to stay for sure. And every time this game happens, even during the regular season, I am making sure to be there. So yeah, I'm super stoked to see. I heard that guy SGA is MVP as of today.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but he played for the Clippers.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder on that one. No, and I mean, they showed it during the broadcast. We had talked about it going into these playoffs, everything he had at stake. He has achieved the first part of sort of the triple crown of regular season MVP, championship, finals MVP. And if he goes back to back, we had talked about the rarefied air it would put him in. And this is a series where, for those that want the Thunder to fail, and we're going to keep doing glass half empty, glass half full, the Thunder have not really played anyone in these playoffs.
No.
The Suns were
They've
not
been
a real
sleepwalking
test,
through.
and the Lakers' corpse was not a real test. This will be for people that feel that Shea is not a deserving 2-time MVP, that the Thunder are not a deserving dynasty holder, that they are just a collection of foul baiting, fouling, mediocre, good players, but not great players. This will be the series where, to your point, the future is now with the Spurs. They are young, but this is also a 62-win team. I believe I saw a headline. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to fact check this once we put the pod up. I think this is the first matchup of two 60-win teams playing in the playoffs in the past couple of years. So this is it for the Thunder. This is the hardest team you've had to go play in a 7-game series. This is probably the best player since Dallas Luka, the last time they lost in the playoffs, that you're going to have to play in a series. Vic is coming, and I think every NBA fan should be absolutely thrilled and hope that this goes 7 so that we can see these teams play as many times as possible.
Yeah, man. We're going to talk after game 1.
Yeah, we're going to talk after game 1. Let's do some predictions because we're great at predictions here. This is it. You have been Mr. Spurs are going to win the championship. Here we are, May 17th. It's in front of you. You ready to pick the Spurs to beat the Thunder?
Yeah, I'm picking the Spurs to beat the Thunder. I think they got the juice.
How many games?
And let me talk about what's behind that.
Mhm.
You don't know what you're getting out of Jalen Williams, but they're going to bring him back. And we see stuff like this happen in not the smoothest way pretty often because it's really hard to do that in the middle of a playoffs run. We saw Tatum get not really reintroduced right. Jalen Williams hasn't been reintroduced well all year. They've been trying to reintroduce him, and he just keeps hurting the hamstring. If it's not one, it's the other. So we're going to see what we get out of him. They finally need him. So, they're facing someone who can actually take advantage of anything. Yeah, I mean, I got the Spurs in this one because I'm just behind what Vic can bring to the table, and I think they're so deep and they're really clicking. But it could go six. It should go six, but I would love to see it go seven as well.
So your
Who you got?
official prediction: Spurs in 6.
Spurs in six, Spurs in seven, whatever.
I'm Oklahoma City all day, every day.
Yeah.
I think the Spurs are a really good team, and to me, it was again. We'll see what De'Aaron Fox comes into this series and plays
Need
in
him.
this series.
Need good Fox.
To me, the only path for the Spurs to win this series is De'Aaron Fox has an All NBA level series and is clearly the third best player on the floor. And because of my lack of faith in him to do that over the course of 7 games, I'm going to pick the Thunder. And so I'm going to go. I really wanted to go Thunder in 5. I really, really wanted. I'm going to go Thunder in 5.
Okay.
And
Nice.
you know what? I hope we both have said it. I hope my prediction is wrong so that we get as many of these games as possible because I think they are all going to be close games. I think both of these teams have so much pride that neither of them are going to get blown out at any given time.
Yeah.
I think the Thunder's ability to execute at the end of these games will be the deciding factor. And if De'Aaron Fox plays all NBA level, clutch player of the year, sponsored by, Visit Dubai or whatever the league is sold off for sponsorship for that trophy now, then the Spurs could make this a longer and more interesting series. But if Chet, Jalen Williams, even guys on his own team like Castle and Harper are outplaying De'Aaron Fox, I don't think the Spurs are going to be able to have the horses to compete in this one.
Yeah. OKC should win this series. I agree with you. I just choose to believe.
We'll see. I had many debates with my friends last night. We were at a buddy's birthday party, and we said, "What's more likely, Thunder in 5 or the Spurs win the series?" And everyone agreed it's Spurs win the series because there's a lot of respect for Vic, and I think justifiably so. He's absolutely incredible. The same way we said with the Thunder and with Shea, there's levels to this. There's a big jump between Denny Avdia, Anthony Edwards on one leg, and what you're about to play tomorrow night.
Yeah. 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 Yep. All right, man. The future is here. Knicks.
And then let's go
Cavs.
let's go back to the JV division to close.
The JV division.
We just gave you here's a great 10-ounce filet mignon, and then as your dessert, you get some McDonald's chocolate chip cookies.
This is the NBA TV series. In the conference finals, they just for some reason kick it over. Yeah, man, give me your pick. We got Cavs, we got Knicks. Who you got?
Oh my God, the NBA TV series. That's a good one. I'm excited for this one. I think there are a lot of underrated storylines. First off, will New York burn to the ground if the Knicks win this, or if the Knicks lose this series? But what will happen to a city that we all love?
It's burn either way.
Close.
It's Knicks basketball. They haven't played games this important really ever.
As a favorite too is I think the other part of this that even going into Indiana last year, there was the idea that the Pacers were this sort of team of destiny. They were going to be a really tough team to beat. I think the Knicks, with another year under their belt, this is it.
The Knicks have so much pressure on them, whereas the Pacers was just this flash in the pan, out of nowhere thing.
And there's all the fun storylines that come with a series like this. You know, the Knicks wanted Donovan Mitchell. That was their number one choice. And I think settled is probably too strong of a word, but ended up with Jalen Brunson. And so that'll be a fascinating dialogue throughout the series. You have Jared Allen, who may still have nightmares of Mitchell Robinson and gave the infamous quote of the lights were just too bright for us. You have Knicks fans terrified every single time Max Drew shoots a three and getting PTSD from all of those Heat series. So there's a lot of fun elements here where, I mean, what stands out to you from this series? Let's go big picture because we're going to do all the X's and O's on Tuesday. What's one storyline you're sort of excited to follow as this series develops?
I don't want to be a hater, so I'm not going to pick a hater topic. But let's go glass half full with what Karl Anthony Towns can bring to the table here. This is a chance. I mean, he's going at a great defender on either Mobley or Jared Allen, whoever's choosing to pick him up. And can he still exert the influence on the game of being this new offensive hub that they've asked of him? And this is do or die for his career, I think. So stakes are high. Let's see what he's got.
Way to really play down the significance of the series. His career is at stake. Absolutely. I mean, you had mentioned when you had went through the Spurs Thunder lead up. The Cavs and the Knicks played 3 times this year. Only one of those was a game in which James Harden had played after the trade. The Cavs won that game. The Knicks had won the previous 2. The Cavs had a really interesting defensive strategy where we'll see how much Dean Wade plays in this series. There's a world where he may not even be in the rotation. This might be more of a Keon Ellis series where whoever that 5th starter is, their job is going to be to guard Jalen Brunson. They might start Dean Wade. What they did in that game in February is they had Dean Wade guard Jalen Brunson. They had Evan Mobley guard Josh Hart and then Jared Allen guard Karl Towns and just sort of switched any of that action. So we'll see what happens there. I think this is a great draw for the Knicks. And this is totally – I have picked the Knicks to make the finals since before the season. I think that's well documented. I had been talking to my producer, Sean, or our producer, Sean, before, who's a massive Knicks fan. For those that listen will obviously know that. And I had said to him, you should want to play Cleveland over Detroit. Because as much as Cleveland scares you from an offensive standpoint, I think there's so many holes you can pick at in their lineup that will give you the ability to take advantage of them. So, I mean, sure, could Harden and Mitchell go nuclear? And could the Cavs three-point shooters really heat up for a couple of games? Yes. I think the Knicks are just a great matchup. We'll see what level of OG Anunoby comes back. You had mentioned the Jalen Williams return. I think equally as important, if not more important, given the lack of sort of depth of talent. The Thunder have so many options. The Knicks have a few, but not nearly as many as the Thunder. OG Anunoby comes back and plays the way he was playing. I feel good about this for the Knicks. What are you thinking prediction-wise?
The Cavs just don't have enough horses here, especially if OG is back. Yeah, they just have weaknesses, like I talked about, that the Pistons weren't able to exploit. But they're going to be able to just take it to Harden and turn him into old man Harden pretty easily, I think. And then you're going at Max Strus. And they're actually going to make Donovan Mitchell work defensively. I think if, like you're saying, if Donovan Mitchell and Harden go nuclear offensively, that's kind of the only chance they have. So who you got?
Knicks in 4.
Wow. Okay.
Boom. Get them right out of there. I want to go Knicks in 5. I don't think this is a particularly long series. I think the Knicks figured something out in the Philadelphia series. I think the Cavs, who we had talked about it since before the start of the playoffs, there was one part of the bracket. Whoever came out of that Boston, New York axis was going to be heavily favored in this series. We had talked at length about Cleveland, Detroit. I think this was more Detroit lost than Cleveland won it. The Cavs played
Yeah.
well at certain points in this series. I see you had mentioned James Harden having the massive flashing light above his head every single time he's on the floor. I think the Knicks, if Anunoby comes back, and all reporting is he's going to come back at 100%, I
Yeah.
think the Knicks are a great matchup. You have Bridges and Anunoby to guard Harden and Mitchell. It was sort of what this team was designed to be, to take away your two best perimeter players and to make the rest of the lineup. We're going to be bold. I'm going to go New York in 4. What do you have?
I like it, man. I think more realistic, it's going to be New York in 5, maybe 6. Just in deference to Donovan Mitchell is going to have a game. But yeah, I agree with you in your thinking here, and I think we're going to have the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals for the first time in 30 years. Dude, I want to fly to New York and like go watch outside MSG.
I need Spike Lee and Timothy Chalamet to try and figure out where the hell Oklahoma City is on a map.
Yeah, I don't know. If they're going to travel.
Yeah,
I don't know if they travel well.
yeah, that's the content I need. I need to see a New Yorker and like an Oklahoman hang out and figure out what the hell they can talk about.
Kylie Jenner's like, "You're really going to drag me to Oklahoma City?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're coming."
Yeah, 100%. We'll have something. We'll know the results of Game 1 for both of these series by the time we pod on Tuesday. This should be a lot of fun. This is it, man. We're getting to the good stuff. And I know for you and I, who've definitely been circling San Antonio, Oklahoma City, this is going to be a really fun week of basketball for us, and I'm sure a lot of people that have been looking forward to this one for as long as we have.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about what just happened. We're excited for what's to come. Let's let these game ones go by, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Amazing. Oh, let's finish, of course, everyone's favorite segment. It is Movie Minute. We're waiting for the Letterboxd sponsorship. I think we're in the closing stages of getting that deal done. I'm optimistic. We'll have to figure it out. What do you have for Movie Minute?
I'm zagging. We're doing Tom Dundon, the Blazers owner.
Okay, I will do my Movie Minute, and then we'll finish with Tom Dundon. Chuck, if we're going to give an homage to Tom Dundon, the cheapest owner in any sports, we need our brand partnership portfolio to be strong. We can't blow off potential sponsors to talk about other things. I saw Sheep Detectives. Let me sell this to you for a minute. Sheep Detectives. Did you like Knives Out? It was okay. But what if Daniel Craig was a flock of sheep?
Okay.
And what if they were
He is the whole flock? Like, how does that work?
So, I'm so happy you asked. Mind you, we're making I actually thought this was a good movie. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. Was absolutely stunned for that to be the case. Hugh Jackman dies. Breaking news.
Wait. How can one man be a whole flock of sheep? You can't dodge this.
Well, because they're all the detectives.
Okay, the sheep are the detectives.
The sheep
because
are
it's
the
called Sheep
detectives.
Detective.
The sheep. And there, my friends, there is your Movie Minute. Go check out Sheep Detectives and go watch a flock of sheep play the role of Daniel Craig and solve a murder. Okay, you wanted to talk El Cheapo.
They call him El Cheapo.
We're getting charged every minute we do this pod, so in an homage to Tom Dundon, we should try and wrap soon. But what do you want to do here?
They call him El Cheapo, which is wonderful. And he's like, you know what? You're going to call me that? Let me double down on how cheap I am. And gives a scathing interview about, I'm cheaping out on the hotels. Yeah, I'm cheaping out on not bringing the two-way players to the next playoff series. If you don't like it, you can leave. And then other counter articles of like, who is this guy? He made his money as a subprime lender in the housing crisis. So basically preying on people to default on their loans. and taking their houses after he's taken their money. I'm not saying he did it all, but that's how he made his money. So yeah, that's El Cheapo for you.
Riveting. I can't wait until he sees the details of Jeremy Grant's contract and tries to blame him for the housing crisis of 2008 to get his contract disbanded.
Yeah, I would want to
Because
cheap out on that
he
too.
picked a very funny team to be so cheap about. I mean, they paid Damian Lillard $13 million this year to do nothing. They're
Yeah,
paying Jeremy Grant $32 million, and he was playing, but he also essentially did nothing. So it's an expensive team, and this is not Dundon's first ownership experience. He also owns the Carolina Hurricanes of the National Hockey League. And for those that are a believer in El Cheapo, they will say he did this exact same model in the NHL and found success with it. It goes back to the old Brian Windhorst adage. Winning a championship means you never have to apologize. If this works and his cost-cutting measures lead the team to be successful, no
yeah.
one will make any jokes. If they sputter and players don't want to play for him or they lose fans because he is so cheap, him and whoever owns the Dallas Mavericks, the Aldersons, will have a grand old time trying to take the role of who's the worst owner in the NBA.
Fans are going to show up. Portland people are cool. I've been to that stadium. They care. Um, yeah, you just hope that they're able to keep building
Yeah.
a good team because they're getting somewhere. So hopefully they can keep making the right decisions.
Well, El Cheapo, I assume you will not be paying for a sponsorship on this podcast, but if you do, we're open for business.
Anyone, come along at any time.
Beautiful thing. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We, as Chuck mentioned, will be back on Tuesday to break down all the game ones. If you've listened this far, please tell a friend to tell a friend. We're really trying to build something here. We're going to keep this train rolling. We have a lot of really fun stuff the rest of these playoffs and into the offseason. Chuck,
Yep.
where can everyone follow along?
Pretty much every social media that exists. We are CJ Hoops or CJ Hoops Pod. I'll talk to you soon.
It's always great when you know our username. And yeah, tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, rate, subscribe, review, do whatever other cool stuff you do on social media. And we'll catch you next time. See you later, Chuck.
Alrighty.